Okay, next up we have Best Early Access Experience, which is kind of a catch-all category for stuff that is still... It's not like Best Early Access Game, because that doesn't really cover everything. It's more a
Yeah,
case of a thing that was in early access that we feel made good use of the fact it was early access, I think is the kind of
yeah.
core of this.
I think it's also just kind of like there's part of it where it's like this is a game in early access that we played and we thought it was really good. It might
Yes.
change and might come up later,
Yeah.
but it's yeah,
Yeah, so that's that. So we actually only got 4 games on here, which I was surprised about.
yeah.
There was a fifth, but I realised later it wasn't early access. But the reason I put it on, I remembered the reason I put it on this list, and we'll talk about it later.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Space Haven, GTFO, Ooblets, and Not for Broadcast. And the last one
Yep.
I'd forgotten was early access, but of course it is.
Yep.
Space Haven is we did a video on it. It's a top down.
That's the management thing where you're like in a space
Yeah,
colony.
kind of ship
Is that right?
management, rim worldy kind of game. They've been putting out really good updates for that game since it launched. They added a whole, and they've done some really good. They've done the thing that early access should do is they've taken a lot of community stuff and really taken it to heart. So one of the things from the original early access release was, farming was really difficult or really expensive for what you got out of it, like cultivating
Yeah.
crops. And they looked at that, and then the next update they basically added an entire condensation system where you could gather water from the air, and depending on what was in the room
Okay.
would gather more water from the air or not. But yeah, that it's done a really good job with early access. The latter half of the year I get distracted by other stuff, but I really want to get back into that and try that. And then GTFO is just like,
GTFO kicks ass. That game is
it's
awesome.
it's one of the best experiences I've had, both as a multiplayer game, as a team-based thing, in a long time. And specifically,
Yeah.
it's also, so it's still in early access, but specifically also in here, their entire model of how they're
The
building that
rundown
game
system.
works in early access. So for people who haven't seen it, GFO works in what they call rundowns, which are like sets of between like 10 and 12-ish levels, that get progressively harder. So they're grouped in like A, B, C, D. They get progressively more difficult as you unlock them, which changed at the end to the last rundown. But then once the rundown's done, all of those levels go away, and a new rundown comes out with 12 brand new levels, which...
And it's like when new rundowns come out, they have like unique new mechanics,
New
that
mechanics.
are not linked to anything that was in the old rundown.
New enemies, new weapons, new tools, all of that kind of stuff is in there. So basically that game came out, so that game launched early access December last year, but I only picked it up this year. And I picked it up on the third rundown, I think, and started it with a bunch of guys basically at the start of the third rundown, and the fifth rundown came out last month, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating to watch that game develop and just continue to be just incredible. Like it's just so good. It's just so
it's a
good.
game. It's a game that stressed me out in a way that a game hasn't stressed me out in a really long time.
Yep.
It's
really good at that.
definitely the idea of like this like omnipresent warden that is just sending lives into this horrible place with like no abandoned shit gear, and it's just like, yeah, make it work.
Yeah.
The game is really good at making you feel like exactly that. Like the deck is so stacked against you,
Yeah.
and it gives you very little recourse to stop that. It's really interesting the
Like-
fact that they're able to pull that off, and it doesn't feel unfair. Like it's
Yes, totally. It all feels doable, and it's definitely got that case of like, yeah, you fucked up because you fucked up. Like it was not did not feel. There's a couple of situations where some of the randomness has felt a little bit unfair to us, but it's still like it still feels doable. And it's the little touches like, you don't get dropped into the map with full ammo. Like everyone gets dropped to like 50% ammo.
That's what I mean. It's like, yeah, you get dropped in with like limited ammo and like a health pack that has like maybe a charge in it.
Yeah.
And like you've got a turret, which is a super strong thing, but it only has like 20 bullets or something like that. Like it is, they've literally just thrown stuff at you and said, "There you go," and chucked you in. Like it's a really cool thing.
It's awesome. Ooblets is the kind of farming management.
It's like Animal Crossing crossed with Pokemon.
Yeah, it was dance battles.
It was really. It's on this list purely to just say that I thought it was really cool. Like I've not touched it in a really long time.
They've had 2 updates that I haven't touched since launch. Basically,
I was just on there to say like I enjoyed the time I spent with it, and I will probably go back to it when it is done, quote unquote.
Yeah, totally.
When it's like out. Yep. I don't know when that'll be because it's only 2 people that work on it, but like that's
totally.
They can take their time, take as long as they need.
They have a really good framework there for doing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then Not For Broadcast is the
FMV
TV game.
I love Not For Broadcast. Not For Broadcast, is a game where you play like the producer of a 6 o'clock news in a fictional Britain that has recently voted in a incredibly left-wing government, which sounds really strange, but it is. It's a game with very, very simple mechanics where it's all just about like you cutting cameras together and like muting swears and like it's basic production level stuff.
Yeah.
But it is the way that it's framed. It's not a game. There isn't a game that's done that before, which is really interesting. But it's also framed with a kind of very British Monty Python-esque comedy to it.
Yeah.
Where there's this very serious story of like this left-wing government have come in and they're like rejecting passports to the rich, and like there's a whole sub thing, and then there's a whole subplot of like you produce the news but you're actually technically in charge of what people see, so how you could then cut the news in certain ways to make the populace feel different things, and there's a whole subplot to that which is also really interesting, but at its base level, it's really fucking stupid. Like the things that you see in that, like the actors, it's all in FMV that you're cutting together, which is great because I love FMV stuff. But like, you can tell that behind their acting facade, they're just really enjoying it because it is the script's really stupid and there's really dumb jokes in it, and it's a brilliant little thing that. It's like a team of like 5 people with a bunch of like actors and stuff like that, but like the people making it are like 5 people, and they've clearly just gone like, we want to make this thing with this idea behind it, and also we just want to make dumb jokes and make ourselves laugh.
Yeah. And
it's really good at doing that. It's really, when we get to best moment I'll talk about it, but there are some situations in that game that I was dying at. Like I was doubled over laughing. It was so good. But it is a game that is very good at switching between the 2 tones that it presents. Quite like really quite deftly. Like it's not like here's the funny bit, here's the serious bit, here's the funny bit. It's good at weaving them and making it like never letting you forget that hey, there's this serious stuff here, but then also look at the dancing monkey sort of idea.
Right.
But Not For Broadcast is such a cool thing. It's really unique.
Yeah. It's super cool that a team of 5 can do an FMV game. Like FMV is not easy. Like at the best of times,
it's especially been impressive in the current climate of the world.
Right,
like they keep putting out updates being like, hey guys, coronavirus, like this is difficult for us, but we're trying to figure it out. And they keep putting updates being like, we've done this shoot for this episode. It was all done with social distancing. Everyone was wearing masks. Like this is great. Like look at all these production photos. And they've managed to put out like 2 new episodes, despite there being the pandemic.
Yeah.
I have not gone to them because at the end of the episode 3, which was the initial batch, was like 3 episodes. I decided that I kind of wanted to wait and just play it through it in its entirety when they were done, because that thing is so special and unique and different that I want to see what they do with it in a total, like as a whole story, as in bits and pieces.
Did they know when it's going to be done?
So they're talking about chapter 2 being released at the start of this year. So my hope would be maybe the end of next year.
Right. Okay. So they've still got a lot to go.
Would be my hope,
which is cool.
Yeah, I don't know how many chapters they've got planned or whatever, but they're still putting out content.
Okay, so I assume Blitz is the only thing that doesn't make cut in this, just because we didn't go back to it.
Yeah, I think GTFO, Space Haven, and Not for Broadcast are about right.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's GTFO. It has to be, right?
I would be fine with GTFO winning it. That game's amazing, so I'm
really
fine
cool
with that.
And again, it's not just like best early access. Like they've done, like basically building the structure of your game around the idea that
they've made early access a core mechanic to the game,
which is very cool,
really super fascinating. But yeah,
cool. Yeah, so best early access experience is GTFO, with Space Haven and Not for Broadcast as runners up. God, I need to. Cool. I'm looking forward to Not for Broadcast when.
It's so
I'm
good.
tempted to wait to at this point and see what they do.
I've talked about them before, but there are moments that I'll talk about in best moment that are just they show off what that game is to like a T. It's brilliant.